All right, let's talk about pricing. There are two main methods that you can use to add pricing to your products. And I'm going to click on one of the products here in my environment to show you. You'll see that on each product under pricing method, you'll have a drop down where you can select between a couple of options, either the input price or the calculated price, cost and margin. Now, one thing to note is that you're not required to attach pricing to every product. But if you do want to associate pricing with an item here in your library, in most cases, you're going to use one of these two methods, and I'll talk through the differences. The input price method, kind of as the name implies, right? You're going to input a value for unit cost and then input a unit price. Now, you do at a minimum want to have a unit price because that's what's going to show up on the estimate and be factored into the job. The unit cost you can plug in if you'd like, but if you want to leave that blank, that's fine too. Now, the other option is what we call the calculated price, cost and margin. The difference with this one is that rather than manually entering in both a cost and a price, you're actually going to only enter in a unit cost, and then ArcSight is going to automatically calculate the unit price based on a standard margin. And the way that you'll set that margin is you're actually going to go to a different page. You're going to go up here to the top and click Settings, and then you'll go to Estimating here under the Takeoff and Estimate. And then you've got this field up here at the top, product margin. This is the field that is going to work in tandem with any products that are using the calculated method. So again, you can set a percentage, 30%, 40%, 50%, whatever the case may be for your business. And then once you have saved that margin, you can then begin applying it to any products using the calculated method. So again, I'll go back. We'll click into one of our products here. So I'm going to click into this post example this time. And if I want to switch it to the calculated, all I'll do is toggle on the calculated method. Again, I will enter in my cost. But then my 50% margin that I've set is going to be automatically applied so that that price will be automatically calculated for me. Now, one thing to note here, you can mix and match, right? You have this selection. You can choose input or calculated on every product. So you may have some items in your library that are input and then others that are using calculated. One good example of that is, maybe you have a standard margin that you apply to all of your materials, in which case you would use the calculated method for the products comprising those materials. But you might not necessarily apply that same margin to something like labor or other intangible costs. We'll talk more about labor and intangibles in a future video, by the way, but just wanted to throw that out there as an example of something where you may have calculated method for some products and input for others. The other thing I want to show you here is, in addition to editing this information within the product panel, you can also do it here, don't forget, in the table, right? I can go in and edit my cost and or price fields as appropriate here in my table. The third way that I can do this is through Excel. So I'll show you how to do that. If you go up to the top and hit Import and Export, you can go down and hit Export as Excel to download the library in Excel format. Now we'll talk more about some of the different things that you can do here in Excel, but for our purposes right now, I'm going to open up our file, and I'll show you how you can update the pricing. So this is my spreadsheet that I've downloaded from Excel. For right now, we're just going to stay here on the Products tab. And again, we'll highlight how you can easily update your pricing. And where that's going to live is going to be here in columns H through J, right? So you've got pricing method in column H. You can select from the dropdown either the input or calculated for each of these. And then in column I, you have unit price. And then in column J, you have unit cost so that you can enter in those values, right? And so for my input items, I can obviously go in and say, whatever the price is going to be and whatever the cost would be if I want to put that in. But remember, for your calculated, you're only going to enter in the cost. So, let's say that, this fabric that we have here in row 19 was set to the calculated method. I'm going to leave column I blank because, again, ArcSight's going to automatically calculate that for me. But if I want to go in and plug in my cost, I'll do that here in column J. Now, once I have made any changes that I want to make, whether that's adding pricing that was missing or editing existing pricing, I'm going to go and make sure I've saved my file so that those latest changes are protected. And then I'm going to go back to the user site, and I'm going to go into import and export. And this time, I'm going to go to my bulk import edit with Excel. I want to select my bulk edit the whole library option, which is the little radio button here on the right. Now, at this point, I've already done step 1, which is the export, and I've done step 2, which is the editing, in this case, updating my pricing. So I'm ready to proceed to step 3, which is importing the file. So I'm going to go in, grab my file that I just worked on, and then it will import my changes. So it's going to walk me through what I've done, and in this case I can see that I've got 4 updates for these items that I updated the pricing. We didn't update any groups or bundles, so nothing else that we'll see here. So I am now ready to go ahead and hit import. And I've got my confirmation that the upload is successful. One thing to know here is that sometimes if you're working with a large amount of data, you may not see the changes reflected immediately. Give it a few seconds and then hit refresh, and then you should see any changes that you've made reflected here in the website.